Hello and welcome to this episode of AEC TechTV. My name is Arni Heiskanen. I'm a construction innovation agent, and my guest is Altaf Ganihar, the founder and CEO of Snaptrude. And we are going to talk about collaborative and parametric building design with Snaptrude. Altaf, it's great to have you as a guest.
Great to have be a part of this amazing show and podcast that you run, Ani.
Thanks. So we actually had a discussion about a week ago, and you showed me what Snaptrude can do. And I thought that was so interesting that I would love to share what I saw with my audience. But before we start the demo, can you tell us about your company and how you came up with the idea of Snaptrude?
Sure. So fairly interesting story because I am not an architect or don't come from the construction background directly though, but have spent significant time at the intersection of AEC and tech over the last, I think it's close to 5-6 years now. During my undergrad, I was working on a fairly ambitious project to reconstruct a cultural heritage site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 3D. And we were supposed to create a workflow which would automate that process. Like as a hardcore researcher, I was into writing algorithms, bringing in computer graphics and geometry. And during that time, since I was working with a few architects, I realized that this industry has not really innovated a lot over the last, say, 2-3 decades. And since I was still an undergrad student, I was curious, can I just maybe pick a small problem and build a hobby project? And I started writing plugin to SketchUp at that point of time. And I was supposed to join a PhD program, but I thought this is gaining some traction. Maybe it's worthwhile exploring for a year or two to see where these plugins or these small projects take me. And I decided to plunge into building those. And a couple of years down the line, I realized that as I got more closer towards architects, construction, it's not just these plugins that can solve. It's like adding bandages to open wound. It's that big of a problem. You would have to relook at how the design process happens together, which today is stitched across multiple tools. You would have to take the design up to a basic specification to get some feedback, both feedback from people, stakeholders, as well as feedback in terms of data, say around climate, around budget, around compliance, only to realize that you might be off and then go back to the drawing board and iterate it so many times that you are trying to fix the process rather than come up with the best possible design that can serve the clients or the climate at that point of time. And we wanted to bring that focus back. And that's where in late 2017, 2018, we started building what Snaptrude comes out today, which is a web-first collaborative building design suite, which literally runs out of a web browser, so is device agnostic and is collaborative in nature. So multiple stakeholders can come together irrespective of where they are located, which device they're using, and work simultaneously and iterate much faster in coming up with not just designs, but actually designs which are more efficient, more sustainable, more client-centric, and also are satisfying so many constraints that are required to get the best possible design out there.
Since you said you've been around for a few years now, who are your customers and what are they using Snaptrude for?
So our primary customers are architectural firms, plus also we do have design build firms who use Snaptrude. And the primary use case is concept design, the early stage design exploration, programming, and collaboration with within the team for large firms who are located in multiple locations, which are today using tools like Miro, Figma, which are not even meant for architect or the construction industry, just like using some hacks and tools to put together. They are actually replacing Snaptrude to be that tool where they can come up with their massing option, generate their first BIM model, iterate over, say, the quantities, the budget analysis, sustainability analysis. And then when they are into, say, the construction drawing stage or design development stage, they go into a BIM tool because of the interoperability which Snaptrude today offers. And for the design build, there's a very unique use case because they directly work with customers who, like most of the time, people build one home in their entire lifetime. So it's a very prized position for them. And they want to be involved in that process. So because of the collaboration capability, design build firms can actually work directly with the customers, where their ideas are much more visually like annotated on the platform, and the impact of each one of their suggestions can be shown by the firm in real time. So this is another important use case which we are seeing come across. But there are also a lot of secondary and tertiary use cases from like manufacturers, from like large developers as well, for feasibility studies and all those other things. But these two are the primary use cases where Snaptrude is being deployed today.
Okay. Well, perhaps you can now start sharing your screen and showing us around Snaptrude what it can do.
Absolutely. Let me just quickly share the screen. Yeah. So as I said, Snaptrude is an online platform. So I'm using Google Chrome. So it literally works out of a web browser. No hassles of downloading, say, a 10 GB or kind of an application and then installing it, maintaining it, files, those all headaches go away. So the drawing capability is fairly straightforward. So I'm just going to start drawing, say, a plaza to enter into the building. Say there's a very small water body that I would need to draw over here. All the snaps, constraints, everything is built in, so you don't have to worry. But the unique thing is, you saw we don't start with walls or structural elements. We start with zones or spaces. At the very initial stage, architects love to play around with what is the bubble diagrams. Just like move things around, rearrange things, see how each space interacts with the other space, but also use the best of both the worlds, which is you can actually move the edges parametrically too. So I'm moving each one of those edges, while also carving out the spaces individually too. Like I can move this vertex out, carve out each one of the space, study the impact of what if I remove this vertex, what would happen. So all of those things can be very intuitively played around. And since it's a BIM tool, 2D and 3D just go hand in hand. So I've got the 3D version of the massing study always with me. Let's just quickly go around to the second floor. So the lower floor is shown as a reference, so the snapping can happen much better. So you're not just doing rough massing, you're actually doing fairly accurate stuff. So you don't compromise on the quality of the model and the drawing that comes out of it. Now there are some shortcuts, like I'll just say that this is a plaza and it would convert into a plaza. So like keyboard shortcuts for CAD tools, we have keyboard shortcuts or label shortcuts for spaces. So you can just say this is a water body, it will become a water body for you. So you can define these yourself as well. Plus there are a lot of default shortcuts available for you to just like call these spaces. So say this is a reception. Then there's a famous massing tools like the push pull. So you can just like push pull things, snap it to say half the size of the second floor over here, pull it along this direction, move these edges, move these faces, like how you typically would love to do in a free form modeling tool. All of those things are possible. Now, since I'm demonstrating a commercial building, let's just maybe add a few floors to it. So I'll just add 10 floors by replicating the second floor over here, and we have got some 10 floors added to this massing study. Now, again, since as I said, it's a very free-form modeling tool, you can start playing around with the facade and the massing to a lot more degree. I'm just selecting some alternate floors. Let's just maybe mirror them, and let's just start nitpicking out the edge over here, and maybe 3.5 meters like this, and maybe let's just pick it up over here in this direction by 3.5 meters. So we have some refuge terraces created in alternate floors. You can see how simple it was to be able to just like play around with the massing. But the beauty of it starts now. Whatever I've now been able to create, I want to subjectively, we are seeing how it is looking like, but objectively, I want to evaluate if this design makes sense. So all I would need to do is just click on areas tab over there, and it would auto compute what the area schedule looks like. So the total built up area, the total carpet area, and what the FSI or the floor area ratio looks like. And it also shows the building footprint across each floor, how the distribution is happening, and also across each one of those spaces. I've not labeled other spaces, but you can see the reception which we had labeled. I can click it and understand what that individual space looks like in terms of the areas. And a lot of customization capabilities are also available to customize the built up area formula, carpet area formula, and even the floor area ratio. Like if I don't want to include water body, you can just uncheck it, and you can see the FAR is getting updated. So it's very dynamic. So I can keep making changes, keep studying areas, without actually having to go to an Excel sheet back and forth, which is a nightmare of a task, and don't understand why people do it in 2020s. That was the intention. Now, a lot more data can still be brought in. One is in the form of a live mapping engine. So there is a GIS integration into the system. So you can navigate to the place where this building is actually going to be constructed. So say this is an empty site over here, just somewhere in Washington in the US, but fairly it's universal. So you can go to anywhere in the world, have a satellite view or the elevation view, just click load, and it would actually bring in the site of that place, not just as a planar thing, but actually a topography. So you can do your cut and fill analysis, your sloping analysis in a much more easier manner. So let me just navigate to the place which we had identified, and I can start setting the datum over here. And you can see how the space is over here, and figure out what is the best place to set the datum. And because it's subject to the latitude and longitude of that place, you can do localized climate studies, things like sun path diagram, which with a click of a button, you can generate that this is the true north. And this sun path diagram is generated for this latitude and longitude and not generally anything. And because of this localization, you can even bring up the neighborhood buildings, do shadow studies, etc., which I'll show you in a fairly more completed model very soon. Apart from this, you can still bring in a lot more data, like if you have a CAD files, if a commercial interiors or a renovation project where a CAD file is already available, you can just bring in a DWG file, or you can just like sketch things around and bring it as an image too. Say now we have got this massing study. The next step is how do you detail it out? I want a proper BIM model with say walls, flooring, and all those things. All of this is now automated. So you just need to tell that your external wall is a glass curtain wall, internal wall is a brick wall. These are the dimensions. I can change these things at any point of time. Everything is parametric. Go to automate, click on this one button, we call it as create building. And from this massing study, what it would do is it would create a building out of it, which is if you were looking at a massing to a BIM workflow in any other tool or workflow, it would have taken at least few hours to maybe even days, depending on the scale of the project. But here it's all ready. So click of a button, wait for a few seconds, and you can see it's fairly detailed out, starting from the plinth to flooring to slabs to internal walls, external wall, and still it's parametric in nature. Say I want to go and modify the slab thickness from 150 to maybe 300. So I can just like click it, and within a few seconds, you would see that it's automatically adjusted it such that this is 300, whereas the wall has adjusted to 2700 to maintain the floor to floor height, which we had over here. But still you can go and modify, say the 9th floor, which we have is at 3 meters. I want to make it 4 meters, and it has automatically adjusted to 4 meters and adjusted everything up. So your design iterations are not happening in such a cumbersome manner, but like fairly simply. If I go back to say the 2D view of say the first floor, which we were in, you can even see that the internal walls are proper 100 mm, external is a 25 mm glass wall. And you can even study what it is structurally made up of. So of course there is surface area, volume, the properties, but also that it is structurally made up of 100 mm brick, whereas the finishes are also applied on both sides of the wall with plaster and paint. And these things can be controlled by the user. You can add more layers of finishing, more layer of like rearrange those layers, etc. And also keep applying materials based on this thing. So say if I want to make it into tile, I just quickly go and select some tile finish, apply it to this thing. And if I generate the object properties over here, I'll just quickly select it. And if I generate the object properties over here, instead of the plaster and paint, it's now replaced with screed and tile. Just like visually working around, but the parametric information is handled backend and it's always available to you whenever you would need it. And because of all the structural information available, you can actually generate detailed bill of quantities out of this. So you'll be able to know what kind of tile quantities, what kind of brickwork which is happening, the concrete which is going into your slabs, your columns, your facade elements, your sunshades, everything is documented, ready to be exported to an Excel sheet, so you can actually get the budget and the costing out of the system. I've got a fairly completed project available over here. So you can see all the curtain walls, the mullions, the transoms, the furniture, the doors, windows, everything can be added fairly intuitively. And all of this is documented as a quantity. So you can see that this has two different types of wooden flooring, stone granite, the glass work, different types of glass work, the brickwork, the stone which is being used. Even the finishes on the columns are also documented, and also furniture schedule and a door window schedule is always following you along with the dimensions which are there. So there's a fairly decent furniture schedule available because the third floor is designed as well. I'll take you to that place as well. So let me just quickly go back to the third floor, and you can see all the furniture, etc. And these are all proper 3D models. We're just looking at them in the 2D view. And there is a large library of furniture available, which can just like quickly plug in, drag and drop things from here. But it's not limited. So you can just like, if you want to bring something, say from Revit or say from SketchUp or 3ds Max, you just import them in, say which category it belongs to, and just like bring it in, and you can use it from henceforth in all your projects going forward. So very strong interoperability is built into the system, so you don't find yourself isolated when you're using Snaptrude. And at any point of time now, say you want to graduate into construction drawing or design development phase, you can just export out the model to any of your file format which you would like, right from RVT, because that's the most popular BIM tool out there, or you can even use an IFC, which is the other choice for a BIM file format. Plus there's also DWG, which is largely for small practices who still stick to AutoCAD. And if you're into rendering, so you can take an FPX or an OBJ and go to a proper rendering software like Twinmotion, Lumion, and get beautiful renders out of this model which you have created. Then if you are still just looking to get a PDF out of it, that's also possible if you want to avoid any of these proprietary file formats. And the biggest thing which I did not cover over here is the ability to collaborate. So it's exactly like Google Docs. So if I want to bring in, say, a collaborator or say a customer into this project, you just like invite them into the project, type in their email ID, send them an invite, give them permission. Do you want them to have editor permission or just view permission? And they can start adding comments and things like, so there are a few comments which are there. So I can just like click on it and it will take me to that exact place and show me what the comment was, reply to it, resolve it. So if I resolve it, it would go into the resolved tab over here. So you're able to see what all conversations you have had in the past, internally also with the customer, how those conversations have turned into model updates, and keep a track of this, which today is happening over like tens of email threads or WhatsApp conversation, which are not even meant for this industry, but like we have tied it to the 3D model or the drawing itself. So you're not actually having to work in silos. You can actually work together as a closed group of people. So this is just like a brief overview. A lot of projects have been done on the platform now, which are in various stages of construction. And we are continuously updating the product because it's a web thing. So there will be literally an update out every 2 weeks. And we are very actively listening to each one of our users, customers, and accommodating the request as we go in the future and make this the default standard for the industry.
Okay, thank you for the demo. One question about, let's say I'm a contractor or developer and I develop apartment buildings. How easy is it currently to reuse existing previous designs, or let's say I have a library of different wall types or structures? How easy is it to reuse those in today's version?
It's actually the same thing like how you would do it, say, in any other BIM software. So whatever wall families or any kind of families that you have stored, you can just like reuse it in another project, and you can define it for your entire organization too. So in the enterprise version, we give a common workspace, exactly like how your server would work, but on the cloud, where you can share your families, your furniture assets, your material assets, in fact, the projects as well. But like you would need to decide who has edit permission and view permission. That's up to the discretion of the user. But all of these assets can be used by the same team in whichever project they would want to. And another layer is you can actually just bring in your previous files into new files. Like if you have a 2 BHK layout and you want to quickly do a mass or a feasibility study, if I want to fit these 2 BHKs together and what can I get out of it? So you can just like import that, put together as Lego blocks and just like get a feasibility out of it, do some quantification. those kind of, like we have our own file format that we have built in to do this, which is known as .trude. So that's also interoperable between each one of those projects that you create on the platform.
Okay, you mentioned that you update the software pretty often, even on a weekly basis. But what's in the pipeline in the near future?
Oh, a lot of things. So the immediate thing which is going to be launched in the new year is NURBS. So you would actually be able to do those crazy shapes, roofs, massing studies, which the top architects, the star architects love to do. And because it's so intuitive in nature, you can get quantification, areas, etc. out of it almost in real time. There's an immediate release. Then we are getting into the early documentation phase of the process, where you'll be able to generate neat drawings, some of the wall junctions, the lines, etc., which are visible. All those would be cleaned out, the doors cut, the sections, all of those you'll be able to generate right out of the project, which is much more important for a small architect practice today, because they're doing it across multiple tools, and BIM tools are fairly complicated for them for such a small practice. For those purposes, we are getting in. But the next year, we are getting into parametric components. So defining your own parametric families, defining those rules, probably using a visual programming, or maybe even just like doing an Excel kind of a thing. This is right now we already have programming on top of Snaptrude, but it is in JavaScript. But we want to make sure that it becomes visual. So a lot of architects who are well versed with it can just like get started immediately.
Wow, sounds really exciting.
Absolutely.
So now, if any of our audience would like to start testing or using Snaptrude, how can they do that?
It's fairly simple. So you just go to our website, snaptrude.com, click on the get started for free. Or if you just want to book a demo with any one of us, you can just like book a demo and we can walk you through and get you started. And once you get inside the product in the free version, there will be 3 projects with almost all the features, except for the enterprise one that you'll be able to access. You can just try it out. And if you want to like, if you like the product, you can just like upgrade to a pro version or an enterprise version, or just talk to us and we can help you with that too.
Well, what is the entry level pricing?
Oh, it's $499 a year per user for the professional version, and the enterprise version is at $11.99 per year per user.
Okay, sounds good. So, Altaf, it has been a pleasure talking with you, and thanks, and all the best for the future.
Thank you so much, Ani. It was a pleasure talking to you, and always great to chat with industry thought leaders who are trying to bring about a change. And glad that I could share whatever we have learned and whatever we have built on this great platform.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.